Change your thinking. Change your life. You've all heard that, right? Change your thinking. Change your life. It's one of the cornerstones of our teaching, and you hear that all the time. People will say that, and a lot of times we New Thought look at people in other traditions, and we talk about all of the things that they say, but we have our own. Change your thinking, change your life. There are no accidents. We talk about I am the thinker that thinks the thoughts that makes the things. We say all things like that, and oftentimes we don't completely know what it means. I mean, change your thinking, change your life sounds great, right? Right? Sounds like a good approach to life. That yes, I'm going to change my thinking. And because I changed my thinking, I'm going to change my life. And that sounds great. And we say that, and we will do things like, for example, we started off the new year. We started in New Year's Eve. We had our burning bowl ceremony, and we got rid of the things in 2017 that we didn't want to carry over into the new year. We burned them up with paper. We said some affirmations and set some intentions, changing my thinking, changing my life. And that's great, and I'm all in support of that. But what I also thought about was the fact that it's easier said than done. Am I right? Because you can say, change your thinking, change your life. And before you get out of this room, I was going to say later, but before you get out of this room, some of those same thoughts that you had will come back. Somebody look at you the wrong way. You get a text message, you think about something that somebody said. All of those things, because a part of what I talked about last Sunday is the fact that one of the reasons why things very often don't change is because we continue to think the same old things. And if you remember the story I told about Gary Simmons when he met with those Hindu astrologers who gave him all of these details of his life. And then when it came to him asking them about what the future was going to be, and their response to him was more of the same. He was flabbergasted. How can they tell me all these details, and then when it comes to predicting my future for me, all they can say is more of the same? And their response back to that was, it's because we continue to think the same old thing. So, I thought about this week, what can Open Heart do? Because one of the things, you've heard me say this over and over again, is that I'm committed to providing you with tools that will make you a success story. Whatever success is for you, that's what you will have the tools to do. It's not about building me up, it's about you being able to experience life at its fullest. So a part of what I thought about is that I wanted to take the month of January, maybe beyond, to just kind of do some teaching in a slightly different way. But a part of that is so that you have tools so that when you leave from here, not only will you feel good, but you will also have some things that you can say, wow, I got it, I can do this, I can do that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm being this, I'm becoming that. So a part of that I thought about was to talk about what it means to change your thinking and how you change your thinking. So that's what we're going to explore beginning today. And the thing of it is that often we confuse our thoughts with who we are. We get so caught up thinking that our thoughts are who we are, we don't make the distinction, we don't make the separation. I think about a few years ago, I met a gentleman who was getting some notoriety, and he was becoming famous in his way and everything like that. And one of the things that he said to me was, you should be honored to meet me. You should be honored to meet me. Now that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? That he would tell me how I ought to think and how I ought to feel. I should be honored to meet him. And I stood back and said, oh. That sounds ridiculous. But we let our minds do that to us all the time. To tell us what to feel, to tell us how we ought to act and behave, to tell us how we ought to respond. We get caught up in the messages that are sent to us by the media, things that are happening around us, and they become incorporated into our thinking process. And so often we don't step back from that. We don't have that ridiculous feeling that, like when I just shared the story with you, but we get caught up and we go along with it. And so, for example, if we wake up in the morning, and those of you that don't like rainy weather, and it's rainy outside, then your day becomes messed up. All because it's rainy weather outside. And there's a part that says, well, I don't like rainy weather. You know, rainy days and Mondays always get me down, the song goes. And so we get caught up in that. And so we think that we are our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. We are the thinker that thinks the thoughts. So the first process that we want to remember is exactly that. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker who thinks your thoughts. We can become, as in many religious traditions reminds us, we can become the watcher. See, when you become aware of the fact that you are not your thoughts, and you see stuff happening, and somebody says something to you that, you know, oftentimes will trigger you and cause you to go off and all of that, you can watch how your mind tries to take you down that avenue, and you say, "Are you going?" Now, it sounds easy again, but the important thing is to remember that we want to become the watcher, the witness to our thoughts, to that process, so that we can separate ourselves from that and step back, and then we can begin doing things that ultimately result in us changing our thinking. So there's some things that I want to say briefly before I go into another part of this is about this, and I will talk about her more. But Brooke Castillo, there are a lot of people who do this, but Brooke Castillo has a coaching practice, and I worked with one of her coaches a year ago and all of those things, and she has some amazing things about this process. So she has a book, I'll talk about that later, but it helps us to be able to self-coach and to be able to see these things. But there's some things that we have to think about first, and these are some ideas that I want you to think about and to consider for just a moment. We cannot control the world. That should be obvious. I don't care who you are, you can't control the world. You can tweet all you want, you can't control the world. Leave that alone. Nothing outside of us has the power to make us feel good or bad. Nothing outside of you has the power to make you feel good or bad. It is not the circumstances, but the thoughts about our circumstances that create our experience. Again, when the guy wanted to tell me I should be honored to meet him, I could choose whether I was honored or not. It's my choice, but it's not the circumstances. We attract what we think about. We talk about this all the time, and people say, "Oh, but we attract what we think about," because how we see the world is shaped by our thoughts. The Talmud reminds us the fact that we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. You can come in here and we can have the best music and the best everything possible, but if you are in a place, in a space where you're just not there in that moment, you won't see any of that. You'll miss it all. Emotions are vibrations that lead to action. We can't permanently change our results without changing our thoughts. Here's something important. We don't have to get anything to feel better. We can feel better right now. So yes, a lot of us have made New Year's resolutions. I'm going to lose weight or release weight, because if you lose it, you might find it again. I'm going to release weight. I'm going to find the best partner or reaffirm my relationship with the best partner possible. Or we can say that I'm going to be healthier, I'm going to make more money, I'm going to stop smoking, I'm going to all of these things. And then once I get there, once I do that, once I got that person in my life, once I have lost those pounds, once I have my bank account at that level, once I have this happening, I'm going to feel good. No, you can be and feel better right now. As a matter of fact, if you don't do it now, you won't experience it later. Even when it comes. A lot of times people mess themselves up because they think, well, when I get this and when I get that, and then it comes, and then there's a part of them that says, big deal. Because we haven't taken the opportunity to know that we don't have to get anything to feel better. We can feel better right now because it's about using our thoughts. And as we use our thoughts and as we use that to say that we feel better. And then finally, being conscious and choosing our thoughts are the most important components to feeling better. Not feeling well right now in a different place. Choosing your thoughts and becoming consciously aware of that is the road, is the path to you feeling better. So that's the thing. And she has, and I have these worksheets for you later, because I'm a college professor and I know better than to hand you something while I'm talking, because all of a sudden everything else I say goes out the window. You're going to be looking at the paper. Did he say that? This and that. But I have it later, and it will also be available as a download on our website. And each week, as we continue this, you will have something to carry home with you. So you don't have to say, well, what did he say? And then you call somebody up. Well, I was thinking about where we were going for dinner afterwards. I didn't quite hear that either. Or I was looking at the fabulous hairstyle that Michael had, and so. So, we're going to talk about a few things and not be done. I know you hear preachers say that. But this is when we have those troublesome thoughts that happen for us. Those troublesome thoughts, those negative thoughts. So, first of all, as you become the watcher, and just take one situation, don't try to do everything, one situation, and ask, what is the negative thought that you keep thinking? It could be that the other people in my work environment don't respect me. The people in my work environment or in my school don't respect me. And that's the negative thought that you have, that you carry with you, that every time you think about your work environment, you think about your school environment, that's the thing that you have. They don't respect me. And when you think about it, and when somebody mentions the place to you, the thought that comes to mind, when Monday morning rolls around, or whatever is your first day of work or school that comes around, and it's time for you to go in, and you think about it again, you go, ugh! Those people do not respect me. So what do you think? And it keeps coming up, it keeps happening. What does feeling this thought, what feeling does this thought cause you? A lot of us experience these kinds of negative thoughts physically. Stomach gets tight, if I relate to that. You might feel a tightness just overall. Sometimes you start to feel your heart pounding a little bit more as you think these things. You clench, tighten up, or you start to get a headache, or something on your body starts to ache, or something else, but you have a feeling, and not just physical, but there are other feelings that you start to have. Things like happy, sad, or angry, or frustrated, or depressed, or feeling down, or whatever feelings that these thoughts cause you to begin to identify that and to write it down. That when I think that the people in my job, in my work environment, or my school environment don't respect me, and I get sad because I want to be respected, and they don't do that, so I feel sad. I feel angry. Those no good so-and-sos don't really know who I am. And you get upset. You want to tell them a thing or two. However, but whatever feelings, I write them down. And here's the important thing. Whatever you feel, own it. Don't feel guilty. This is not the moment where you say, well, I shouldn't feel angry, or I shouldn't be sad. Own it. If that's what you feel, own the feeling. Because it's your feeling. I don't want your sadness. I don't want your anger. So own it. Keep it where you are. You can keep it. I'll take other gifts. I had a birthday. I'll take other gifts, but I won't take your sadness or your anger. But what feeling does this thought that my work environment, the people in my work environment, the people in my school environment don't respect me? And how do you behave when you feel this way? If you feel sad, then you walk around, people want to say, what's wrong with you? Or you withdraw. And you say, well, since they don't respect me, when they ask people to do something, I ain't doing a thing. But when I get to my work environment, I go in my office, or I go and I stay to myself, and all I do is answer yes and no, or whatever else, because that's how I behave, because that's how I feel. And that happens. People feel disrespected in their work or in their school environment, and it makes them sad, it makes them angry, so you become angry. So anytime anybody asks you something, you're ready to snap people's heads off. Because you're angry. Because why do you want to know that? Why are you dealing with me? Because that's how you feel. So that's how you behave. And then what's the result of this action? Think about it for a moment. If you think that people in your school or work environment don't respect you, and it makes you sad, and it causes you to be withdrawn, what are people ultimately going to say or do? They don't bother them anyway. All they are is angry. All they are is sad. Don't be bothered with them. So what happens is that the feeling or the thought that you had, the negative thought you had in the beginning, the people in my work or school environment don't respect me, it makes me feel sad, I behave in a sad manner, and what happens is it reinforces the thought that you had at the beginning. Because then they do start not respecting you. Because you're not the best person to be around. Who wants to be around a sad or angry or person or withdrawn person all the time? How many people want to be around somebody like that? Nobody? Nobody. Nobody. People don't want to be around a person like that. And so what happens is that you feel this way, you think this way, you feel this way, you act this way, and this is the result that you get. So it's a never-ending cycle. So you keep thinking that, you keep feeling that, people keep responding that way, and it continues and it loops and it loops and it loops and it loops. It happens in that way. And that's what happens. And then we wonder why, sometimes, and I hate to say it like this, but sometimes people who do end up going off at work. Because sometimes people make you want to do this, or going off in school. But what is happening is you continue to have these negative thoughts. You have these feelings that bring you there, which causes this behavior, which then results in the actions that not only you do, but how other people respond to you. And this is what happens. And it just is a cycle that loops and loops and loops and loops. Does this make sense? So if I find myself in this loop, in this thinking, then it stands to reason that probably what could happen is if I learn how to insert change in this situation. So no longer am I thinking this, no longer am I experiencing this, no longer is this happening because I have said that I am going to think differently. And so it becomes a process again of catching yourself. When you start to think these things, when you start to have this feeling, watching yourself. And in the beginning, again, don't beat yourself up, just own it. Don't beat yourself up. I shouldn't feel this way. Don't should on yourself. And if you thought I said what I said, Almost sounded like what I said. It's the same thing. You should on yourself. And we all do it. I'm not standing here saying that I don't, because I do. The gift though, here's the gift. We can take these things, we can take this knowledge, this awareness, and we can begin, because again, the result proves the original thought. The result proves the original thought. The original thought people in my work or in my school environment don't respect me. I think that it permeates my actions, it permeates my speech, it permeates my conversation, it permeates all of those things, and that continues to happen. And then the results that I get, then I'll say, see, you come up with an idea in a meeting or an idea with someone, and the people there, is that April talking? Sorry. And she never says anything, and she just, and what might be people's reaction in the beginning, because you might say it in the kind of, because you're feeling, so you might not be assertive in how you say it, and you say it, and then you'll say, does anybody have any ideas how to do this or do that? And you say, well, I think we don't. And then they go, does anybody have any ideas? Because so then, see, I told you. I had an answer and nobody listened to me. Nobody paid attention. So then you go back up again, you keep looping and looping. So the first thing I want you to do this week is to find a negative thought and become the watcher. Watch yourself as you think this thought. Watch yourself as you begin to understand and explore the feelings that you have as a result of this thought. Watch how you behave as a result. And then, how does that result then? And what happens around you then reinforce that original thought? Because that's what happens to the negative stuff we do and think. It gets reinforced, it gets reinforced, it gets reinforced, it gets reinforced, and then our minds go back and they gather evidence for it. Because you can have a person, and I think about this all the time, I think about in my past, how one day a person called me and wanted to work with me with some coaching and everything, and when she walked in the room, I thought that she probably was one of the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And as we had a conversation, she had been convinced by somebody in her life who had told her, well, if I leave, you won't, nobody wants you anymore. And had constantly told her how unattractive and how she was and how she wasn't looking like anything. And so she would have that thought. She would hear his voice in her head. She would have that thought. She would continue to act in that way. She started not taking care of herself. She started letting those things go because she was feeling unattractive and all of those things. And I'm sitting there looking at how in the world can this person have convinced someone that, because, you know, I was sitting there and I could see it, and there were other people that were around that knew this person that could see it as well, who would always say that about this person. Oh, that's such a beautiful person, so attractive and all of this and that. But they were unable to see it. They could look in the mirror, and I'm thinking, are you looking in the same mirror and seeing the same person that I see? Because what I'm seeing doesn't go with what you're saying. And that's what happens. There's that disconnect because we get caught up in this. And so the idea was to say that, because everything you said to this person, it just went that way. Because this This person had become so identified with their thoughts, didn't think that this person was hurting, and they decided they wanted to hurt me, but I don't have to accept that. So don't get caught up in, well, I shouldn't think this way, and all of that. Own it for now. Understand it for now. And then, here's the first key. When you find yourself and you've identified that one negative thought, I'm asking you to do this week, is that one negative thought. Once you've done that, ask yourself, what's a better feeling thought to think that's believable for you? What's a better feeling thought that's believable for you? And if I go back to my original example of you're saying to yourself, nobody in my work or school environment respects me. You've made a generalization, because I guarantee you, while you may think that nobody in that environment respects you, there's always somebody who does. Sometimes it's like they tell us as speakers, when you stand before an audience and you speak before an audience and people are just kind of looking here and looking there, there's always going to be one person that's going to make eye contact, and they might nod a little bit. And sometimes you got to focus on that one person. I've stood before groups of people that a hurricane couldn't move them. They're going to sit. But I could always find that one person who, if they made eye contact with me but a few times, and they looked like that they were here and all of that, that helped me to start to focus. And a lot of times I would just find myself just talking to that person. And even if nobody else respects you in your school or work environment, you still have with you. We talk about it here all the time. That presence and that power that is within you, that is expressing itself as you. And a part of the reason why you have these discordant feelings is because that presence and power in you loves you unconditionally. It doesn't care what you look like, talk like, walk like, sound like, dress like, or whatever else. It loves you unconditionally. And when you are not feeling well as a result of those thoughts, it's because you are in disharmony with that presence in you that is saying, wow, you are powerful. Wow, you're fantastic. Wow, you're beautiful. Wow, you're worthy of all that life has to offer. Wow, 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 wow. You feeling like because you are not in alignment with that truth about you. So find a better feeling thought that's believable for you. Now, if you've been walking around for a long period of time feeling like that you are not respected by anyone, and it's been the result of years and everything, you're not going to change that overnight. But you can find a better feeling thought. You may have to start at a lower place. You might even have to start, I'm going to say this, it might sound contradictory, you might even have to start at anger in the beginning. These mofos don't know who they got. They don't know who they have in me. Maybe start there. Then keep working on that better feeling. Keep working with it. Keep moving with it. Keep working with it. Every time that thought wants to come back up again, you interrupt the cycle. No, because they don't know who they got here. I know who they got. I'm my mama and my daddy's child. My great-grandparents did this, all of these things. And when I stand in front of the mirror myself and I look in the mirror, they don't know. I know. Just keep interrupting that thought. You see it happening. Remind yourself of who you are. And then we will start talking about next week circumstances. Because see, what happens is the place that you are in is a circumstance. You're in your work environment. Somebody does say something to you that disrespects you. That's your circumstance. So, I told y'all this and I told y'all that and everything, but now you don't understand my circumstance. Yeah, that's easy for you to say. Because you can stand up there in front of Open Heart and say that, and it sounds intelligent, it sounds great, all of this and that, but you don't know my situation. I don't know your situation. But I can tell you how to take the process that we're going to talk about, and even no matter what your circumstance or situation is, I don't have to know it. I don't really want to know it. I'm not sounding callous. But see, if I know it, I can get caught up in your circumstance and not help you to get to where you need to be. See, because we get caught up in the circumstance, and people come to us and they want change, talk about change, but they spend so much time and so much energy talking about the circumstance, talk about the situation. I think, and then I'm through. I think very, very briefly about a woman. One time, her aunt asked me, "Can you help my niece? She doesn't like the job that she's in." We met. We talked about some things, went through the process and all of that. Gave her some information, some things that helped, and then it just so happened the field that she was in, I knew a bunch of people. Sent them out resumes. They said, "Oh, she sounds like the person that I'd like to have." Every time I would send her a job opening and then contact her and say, "Did you follow up?" "Well, my boss such and such and such and such. Is this what she did today? This is what she said." I said, "That's great, but did you follow up on that?" And let me tell you what else she did. And it came to me that she was more comfortable in complaining about her circumstance than making change in her situation. So next week we're going to talk about when the situation, the circumstances, all of that want to dictate something to us, and how we respond and how we change our thinking to change our lives.
Imagine knowing that there is only one power and one presence in the universe, and that is God. And as each of us takes in all that we have learned today, we take it in, we make it our own, and we simply live from those very truths. We give thanks for all that have participated today. We give thanks for the lesson, all of the beautiful music, the centering moment, affirmative reading, and just all of the beautiful energy that each and every person has brought into this space and into this place today. Moving forward, knowing that, if I change my thinking, everything else will change, but sometimes I get in this kind of loop and I keep thinking the same thing over and over and over again. Everything feeds into that very thought, and every outcome is the same, and it goes back to the same negative thought that I had in the beginning. But guess what? That chain can be broken. Whether it's that I feel that nobody respects me, that I don't look beautiful, that nobody likes me, or whatever it may be, I have the power to break that cycle. I have the power to say, you know what? This stops right here. This stops right now. Whatever it is I'm feeling about it, I'm going to own it. I'm not going to try to give it away. I'm going to work with it. I'm going to be right here with it. And I can always reach out for a better feeling. Another kind of thought. Something I kind of believe in. And even if I can't, I can get mad as all get outdoors and break that chain. Because even if there's no one else that likes me, respects me, or thinks I'm the cutest thing since sliced bread, there is a power that is within me, has been there since before the beginning, and that will be there after the end. That same presence and power that created me, that gives me life, that same presence and power is always there, loving me unconditionally. So I release myself into that. I let go. I let God. It's so